Greetings and welcome to St. Dominic's Weekly. We are in our novice interviews. I have with me today Brother Kevin Peter, and gonna unpack a little bit about background, origin stories, vocations. How are you, Brother Kevin Peter?
I'm doing great.
Now, I ask of all the novices in terms of taking a name, what were some of the ideas that went into taking the name Kevin Peter as a religious name?
Taking the name Kevin Peter as a religious name, well, it is my birth name, so it's kind of a gift there given to me. It was not my first choice, actually.
Really? What was your first choice?
Somebody, actually, there's probably a good reason I didn't get this. It was a Jesuit name.
Oh, tell me. I really this isn't breaking news for myself.
So it was actually the young Jesuit saint, died young, Saint Aloysius Gonzaga.
You're kidding me.
No.
Why? Why did you take Aloysius?
It's all hard to explain, actually, in a lot of ways, but for whatever reason, he's always been present in a lot of ways in my life and growing up and with my family, for, again, whatever reason, who can plumb the depths of providence. Our pastor, growing up, he gave us a first-class relic of St. Aloysius Gonzaga. So we had that, and when I was discerning, my mother lent it to me. It's now back in here at my family. So that was something that was always kind of present. I had it there on my desk in my room, and so he's just always been a patron of mine. One thing I always identified on a sort of personal level was, he came from a very wealthy background, mm-hmm. and he's just had a very soft kind of upbringing. And then he goes to Rome, and the plague breaks out, and he's ministering, and his confessor is St. Robert Bellarmine, doctor of the church, and he admitted to his confessor that he would basically be retching, or trying not to retch, every time he'd minister to plague victims because it was so disgusting to him.
Yeah.
Now, I've always had a weak stomach.
Okay. All right.
So this always really identified with me because, you can be out in situations with people on the streets and you don't know how to handle yourself and you don't know how to speak to somebody, or maybe there's a situation. I was never the one to have to clean up after the dog when the dog made a mess in the house.
Okay.
And when you're in the service to the kingdom of God, there's innumerable examples of this in the lives of the saints, that they had to push themselves past this. And Aloysius ministered basically until he got the flu, not the flu, worse than the flu, plague. The plague himself, and dies young. So it was that kind of act of total self-giving
that inspired you.
Very inspiring to me.
Wow.
So that
is amazing. And did you actually bring up to have Aloysius as a religious name?
It was the top of my list, but Brother Xavier Marie, my dear novice brother.
Yes.
You can't have two Jesuits in one Dominican class.
Really?
Half the class,
So basically, you were told no.
Well, I was told no when I received the name Kevin Peter.
Interesting. Okay, so that was just kind of like. So Aloysius was your top of your. This is amazing on so many fronts. This is great. So so you're the first person I've ever heard who didn't get their top choice in recent memory.
Really?
Yes. Huh. This is the number one.
Pick a Jesuit name. That's what happens.
Number two, it's because I myself flirted with Aloysius as my number one.
Really?
Yes.
Was it for different reasons?
Different reasons.
Oh,
so there is a first class relic about an arm's length right on my desk.
Oh man!
And so
you can't escape them.
No. So and I've told this story before, but this is such an amazing moment. So I don't know if I've told this on the podcast, but it was a moment when I was being confirmed, and you have to pick a name, mm-hmm. and let's just say the confirmation class I was in did not have the most robust catechesis around perhaps the devotional life of the church.
Sure.
To just put it, just give you a sense of context. And so I thought, how is it that I go about choosing a confirmation saint name? Now, normally I think most people would say, oh, you kind of read a book, or what do you like? You like sports, you like this, you choose a patron based on the patron saint. Well, of course, the advice I got from my mom was a little more kind of charismatic, contemplative charismatic. She said, oh, it's very easy. You just go, you find a quiet spot, maybe in a church or your room or somewhere, and you just blank out your mind, and then you ask God to have the saint who's going to choose you reveal themselves to you. And I thought, this kind of seems a little strange, but I'm going to go ahead and do that. So I did. I remember very clearly kind of blanking out my mind. I was like, okay. So I'm ready. Send me. I didn't know exactly what it, and all of a sudden, the name Aloysius just like
Wow.
popped into my head. And I thought to myself, I was very, can be critique in terms of being suspicious about, origins. I thought maybe I just came back from Big Al's barbecue, that we could just, or something like that. Somehow that had been implanted in my bed. It was just some kind of, kind of shadowy.
Immediate skepticism.
Immediate skepticism towards that, until I then, when I was confirmed, the bishop did not actually say the names, because they were just doing Christian baptismal names. And so no, I don't know if any of my confirmation classmates even choose a confirmation name, but that's the name I quote unquote chose. And I told my mom about it, but I hadn't told anyone else, and I was frankly a little embarrassed, even because I didn't want to reveal the means by which I had come upon this choosing. It seemed a little anyway. But at the confirmation reception later on, my grandfather, my mom's dad, said to me, he said, I didn't hear your confirmation name. Did you pick one? Is it a good Irish name like Aloysius, who, as you know, is not Irish at all, and everything? And so I was a little disgruntled, because I thought, oh, Mom must have told them, that was my name, and I fairly made it clear that this was supposed to be on the QT. And so I came back and I said, why did you tell Grandpa about my name? I'm kind of keeping that one under that. And she goes, I didn't say a word. So the next time I saw him, I said, Grandpa, do you remember when you asked me about my confirmation saint's name, Aloysius? So I said, you said he was an Irish saint. He's not Irish at all. He's an Italian Jesuit, many years ago, patron saint of students and of purity of mind, of heart, which was the two categories that were just right, in confirmation age are well needed.
Yes.
But I asked him, I said, why was it that you said Aloysius? Like, would you have in mind? He's not an Irish saint. And he looked at me and he said, you know what? I don't know. It was just the first name that popped into my head. And I thought, oh boy. Yeah, just a coincidence. So at that point, I was all in on Aloysius. And so I basically went to our master and I said, I'm thinking about Aloysius. And I started flirting with it, and he was not. I didn't get a very enthusiastic response. So I do love Michael, so I punted on that. Aloysius might be the saint that has been most denied for novices in the past 20 years now. This is amazing. We're not getting anywhere on your actual vocation story, but this is very interesting
because all the pieces. So I remember I was in it's like, I guess we'll talk about this a little bit, but I was in Southern California.
Well, let's jump into it. So okay.
Well, it's another Aloysius.
But
we can
go
segue.
Yeah.
So I was visiting Southern California. Yeah. I was in the car with a friend of mine. I was entering the Dominicans. This was last summer. I was entering the Dominicans. A good friend of mine who I went to college with. We were in the car, and he was asking. He goes out of nowhere. We were talking about religion, but he just goes, "So you gonna take the name Aloysius?"
Really?
And excuse me? Because I had been thinking about it in the mind. I knew I could request a name. I was thinking about it, and that was the one I've been kind of chewing on. I hadn't said anything to him about him. He comes from an Italian family.
Okay.
But it was totally it just came up. So there was I don't know if there was one other thing that happened, but in the same time period that kind of made me think of it. But then I asked for it and it was denied.
Wow.
But yeah,
clearly Aloysius is trying to break into the Western Dominican province.
Really, he's a great saint for Dominican vocations.
Yeah, he is patronally adjacent or tangent. He's trying to break in. Well, one of these years we're going to have an Aloysius.
Yeah,
it's not a common name.
No, it's not.
You don't. It's if you look up male birth names in the 2020s, you're not gonna find Aloysius anywhere near the top of the list by any stretch.
But my confirmation saint is Saint Juan Macias.
Oh,
the little known Dominican.
Yes.
And your story it just strikes me.
Yeah.
We're going to talk about my vocation story. But
doesn't matter. It
really strikes me because so I didn't have quite the prayerful process, I would say, about choosing a confirmation saint, but I also received very little guidance.
Okay.
And so I was going through. You have to pick somebody.
Yeah.
And again, I was talking about to somebody about this the other day, but I have no idea why this happened. So my mom, when we were young, she would read books to us, and it was wonderful.
Like saint books or literature books?
Literature both.
Okay.
So one of them was a biography of Saint Juan Macias.
Really? Once again, pretty obscure.
Which is pretty obscure.
Yeah.
I have no idea what that thing's like 10 books or something.
Yes. Okay. Yeah.
I always loved it because I was probably less than the age of 10 at the time. And so when I was going through, he had a lot of pretty amazing miracles attributed to him.
Absolutely.
There's the donkey going around town.
Absolutely.
They find him levitating in the church. That's very striking to the 10-year-old mind. So anyway, a few years later, I'm trying to pick a confirmation, saying, I don't know, that guy did really cool miracles. I guess I'll pick him.
Yeah.
And so I did. I didn't even know what the Dominican order was at that age.
Sure.
And so it was within the last 2 years, maybe a year and a half ago, when I was starting to seriously discern the Dominican order. Like, hey, my confirmation saying, well, I think I read it in somewhere, one season, I listed Dominican saints.
Yeah.
No way.
Wow.
I had no idea.
Wow.
So
that is cool. I am firmly convinced that no matter the means by which we choose, our confirmation saints, especially because they're often, confirmation being, at least in this country at this period of time, when not as infants and not quite when you're an adult, but for lots of the kind of education being around kind of that sense of high school, end of high school or beginning of high school kind of maturity kind of thing, that it's an opportunity to not simply do the choosing, but to have an experience of God moving your heart, right? And so so
as little as I was aware of it at the time.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Even if you're not aware of it, it's like God choosing, or your patron choosing you, not you choosing your patron, and it's amazing.
Clearly.
Yeah. So maybe just step back to give our listeners, our viewers, a little bit about where you're from, siblings, family. Give us a little bit of the origins of the origin story.
So I was born in the Seattle area. I lived there until I was about 7 years old, and then we all moved to Clearwater, Florida.
Okay.
The next town over. And so I have 4 brothers, no sisters. I'm the second youngest.
Okay. Do you think your order of your birth order has anything to do, or it has impacted you in Dominican community? Because now you've got there was 4, but three in religious life.
I'm the youngest in religion.
You are, yeah. So I just wondered if there's any you see any correlations between kind of growing up in a family with the brothers and the fraternal life here.
It's definitely possible. I mean, it does make you think about it. It does make you think about that relationship, because I've thought about that a lot. The relationship between younger brother and older brothers. How much that forms you.
Sure.
I have this theory that it's a wild theory that now that I'm saying publicly that I don't want anybody to quote me on, but you can tell a lot of times. You can tell an older sibling or a youngest sibling or a classic middle child stereotype, right?
Sure.
So I do think that can have an impact, but at the same time here, I mean,
wait, hold on. That was your wild theory?
It's not a wild theory, but I tend to
when you throw out the term wild theory, I want you to bring the heat. I want you to bring the heat.
Yeah.
I mean, that was like, oh yeah.
That's as wild as we're getting.
Oh boy! You got any lukewarm milk to really?
It is YouTube. I suppose
give me a little bit of a body, a little pick me up. You got any warm milk?
Right.
But,
it's YouTube.
Yeah, boy.
JFK.
Yeah, right.
Like
444.
Who knows?
Okay.
No. So I mean, here though, I think it's a little bit different. I mean, it is a fraternity, and maybe it's because I'm a novice, so everybody's kind of.
Everyone's older.
Everybody's older, or it is very fraternal, and it doesn't quite have the same family dynamics just because everybody's an adult.
Understood.
You don't have, you and Father Vincent like beating up the novices on Friday night. That does not happen.
That can be arranged.
It can, no doubt. Right. So it was a little bit different, but then you do have those kind of dynamics. The older guys and the younger guys kind of. Giving them grief, perhaps.
That's right.
That does happen.
Now, you were raised Catholic, though.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I have been Catholic almost from birth. I was baptized by the Archbishop of Seattle at the time. So that's cool, I guess.
And then in terms of your own kind of formation, looking towards vocation and your Dominican life here, what do you think were a couple of key moments in that discernment? Because religious life, especially these days, is not necessarily on everyone's list of ambitions, and so to speak. What do you think some of those
Yeah.
maybe key moments or key principles of like really having your heart open to consider vocation, a Dominican vocation?
Yeah, so there's one that really sticks in my mind. I kind of, we go around on the tour, and I usually, and this is kind of the centerpiece story, if you will. I don't know how exciting it actually is, but
just don't promise wild.
It's,
if you're not going to bring
promise,
wild, but centerpiece
wild.
we can go
Maybe
with.
a little embarrassing.
Okay,
so no, so I graduated college in 2015. I went to Thomas Aquinas College. It's wonderful. It's a great books Catholic liberal arts program. We are both alumni.
Recommended, yes, for sure.
Recommended. So, but I went back to Florida, and I was working in real estate development for. So I worked at that same job for just shy of 4 years.
Yeah.
Anyway, so in that, I was going around Florida. We built apartments, so we developed apartments. So it's on the financing and acquisition side of that. So I won't say that I was exactly a world beater at the job, but trying to grow into it, and you had the opportunity to do well if you kind of or I did too. If I stuck with it and continued with it. But then it was about 3 years in, I just had this experience, this moment where we were at a conference. It was a very nice hotel. It's in Palm Beach, Florida. And at this point, to me, it's the culmination of everything and all my dissatisfactions, I guess, with the route that I was going. So the backstory a little bit, and it's kind of important, is I thought about the priesthood in high school. So I visited the diocesan seminary. Didn't really speak to me, I guess, and so I think it was really good. So I went to college, went to Thomas Aquinas.
Now, did your siblings have any stirrings for vocation? Because being young, sometimes you see an older brother or someone express interest, it kind of awakens that. No. Okay. Fair enough.
For whatever reason, I mean, I could go all through it, but to keep a long story short, I mean, I just had a draw. I mean, even at the same time around confirmation and everything, there's just a part of me that really kind of wanted to be a priest that had that.
So you're in Florida. This is pre-T Thomas Aquinas College.
Yes, so this is high school.
High school.
So I'm really thinking about it.
Yep.
Visited diocesan seminary, kind of discerning, but something about it just wasn't quite right. And I really loved the great books and the Socratic method and all the TAC had to offer. And it's very there's a strong Catholic identity too. So I was like, this is fine. Maybe I'll come back to vocation or something at some point. That's fine. So I went there. Had a couple of dating relationships, but so when I graduated, I had another relationship, and I was dating another relationship when I graduated, and so I just kind of put the priesthood. I thought about it over those 4 years, but I put it out of my mind. I was like, I'm just gonna get married. This is great. I'm not gonna think about this. So it was that sort of thing that I think it was, looking back on it. But so 3 years under this job, 3 years after graduation, or 2.5 years, however long it was, we're at this conference, and it's just like the nicest, to me it was like the nicest material thing I ever had.
Yeah.
Just great food, like great, it was like 4 pools of hotels on the beach.
You're in the lap of luxury.
Lap of luxury.
Like, does it get any better than this kind of thing?
Right,
for the high school mind, you're like...
Exactly. So, you can get room service, it's paid for, it's great. It's great. So, but it was this, I think it was the second to last night. It was the last night there. It was, and I was in another relationship at this time too, a really good one, and so I had a girlfriend that I'm looking towards marriage. This is great. I have the opportunity for success. If I stick with it, I work hard. It was kind of made clear too at this conference, like, look, this is what you got to do, and you can do it. This is before you have the chance to, make a lot of money, right? And that's cool. That's the dream, right? And it was just that night. I went back to my room. I left the bar kind of late. I went to the elevator. I'd been with my coworkers, who I enjoy very much. I really enjoy being with them, and went back to my room. I just went over to my bed, and I just kind of collapsed. And I just started sobbing. For not a lot of a really explainable reason, but I'd gone into this with this kind of expectation. This was just going to be an awesome time. really enjoyable, and the culmination of it, it's not great dinner. I just was totally empty. I had nothing, and I spoke to one of my best friends driving back from this experience, and he said, "You're really gonna have to choose," because I was kind of thinking, discerning at this point but I was kicking the can down the road. But that night, looking back on it, I think it really crystallized for me. Like, I kept trying to choose all these material things that I wanted, and I was like, okay, do you have this and this and this, or at least the prospect of them, and it just got emptier and emptier.
Wow. So the kind of taste of material pleasure or whatever else you might kind of like left with diminishing returns or an
right, and
that just said there's got to be more.
I don't want to overplay too that.
Yeah.
I was living at, I was trying to be faithful to the church and everything.
Yeah.
It was like kind of a superficial faith life in some ways, definitely,
Yeah.
but it wasn't totally out the window. But God was it wasn't like I was trying to serve God and I was going to do all this for His kingdom and His glory.
Yeah.
No, it was very much, I'll do all this.
Yeah.
Maybe I can give my 10% at the end afterwards. And
Open to tithing.
Open to tithing, right?
I have my plans and I'm open to tithing.
Right, exactly.
Bless me, Lord, and I'll get you on the backside.
Right. So, but it was this constant thing, and I remember what really kicked off this discernment again too. A priest on Holy Thursday preached about vocation. He said, marriage in some ways is kind of easy, it's natural, right? Everybody has the desire for intimacy and everything, and you fall in love, you get married. Very oversimplification, but in some ways that's it. The priesthood's not quite that simple.
Yes.
You don't just fall in love and marry the priesthood.
Yeah.
But some men, for example, they go and they serve mass. It's just a part of them that wants to be up there, wants to be there. And I was like, that's me. And I couldn't ignore it. So that was kind of what kicked off, and it's just that little bit inside of me that had that desire, that little piece of me, that then brought me here.
And then what would you say so that seems like definitely kind of looking back on it, kind of the stirrings of vocation, where kind of the emptiness of what culture kind of gives us as the kind of paradigms of happiness, pleasure, power, prestige, a sense of having possessions. You taste a little bit of it even at a high school age, and you just see the emptiness, or at least the lack of return on it. Was there, and especially going to college like Thomas Aquinas, was the connection with having a Dominican there influential for you, or what?
Funnily enough, not at all.
Really? See, it's interesting to hear that. So what got you to the Dominicans proper, or particularly?
I have thought about that a lot, and I don't have a good answer.
Really?
So to me, it's clearly providence. It's really God brought me back here, because I can't pick out a moment where I started looking at the Dominicans. I don't know what drew me back to them. So
was it online or something?
It was basically online. I'd be like bored at work or something.
Really?
Read about religious orders.
But when you saw Dominicans, you knew Father Paul, because Father Paul was...
Right, Father Paul Raftery, who's a wonderful, wonderful priest, was a chaplain for 2 of my 4 years in college.
Yeah.
But Father Paul's in an unusual situation as a Dominican. He's living by himself.
That's
there.
Right. Yep.
So I had no idea that the Dominicans have priories.
Yeah.
A lot of Dominican guys together. We live this intentional, sort of
that's the normative.
Rooted.
Yeah, that's the normative.
Right, and so, and two, the other piece of it was Thomas Aquinas College is a very deep community life for a college. That's very close. And so this was another piece of, I think, the emptiness. Is I really missed the common life that I'd experienced in college. I mean, and who doesn't miss their friends, right? But to me, it was I think that really drew me back to look. And then this was a piece of going to religious life versus the diocesan priesthood, because that was my excuse for a while. I looked at the diocesan priesthood, so I can just ignore the priesthood thing. And then spiritual director said, well, what about the religious life? And that was, to me, a real missing piece, where we have guys come to live together for this, in this intentional mode of life, really, in community. That was a huge piece for me. Definitely.
Nice. So the living kind of college communal life experience was something that really drew you in there. And then, of course, Thomas Aquinas is a kind of a sharp Dominican.
He's
a theologian of
some
sorts.
say that, yes.
Someone
Yes,
say
some
that.
say he's influential.
In terms of your own interests, in terms of the intellectual life, could you see yourself pursuing, or how is the intellectual life attractive to you in terms of your own, journey and formation?
Yeah, it's really important. I'm open to many things, but I don't necessarily see myself as an academic.
Yeah.
I guess I'm open to that. If that makes it clear, that's what he wants. But
Yeah.
but it's just so important. I see it mostly in light of our culture.
Yeah.
And not to use all the buzzwords, but relativism and
Yeah.
your truth, and you have your truth and I have my truth.
Yeah.
And I've seen a lot in my own generation, especially. It's just people are really lost and miserable, and they're fed all these frankly incoherent ideas that we're not taught to think through, and then they end up leading you to bad things because ultimately they're not true.
Yeah.
As Aquinas would identify.
Sure.
And that it's going to identify as contemplation ultimately is an activity of the mind.
Yeah.
Right. Because that's so important. Everybody, all the charisms of the Church of all, they're so many different charisms of the Church, with Franciscans primarily working with the poor and whatnot. The Dominican charism just speaks to me because the truth is just so important.
Yeah.
And I think we get ourselves, our culture, our society, and I've seen it so much in my own generation that's just lost.
Yeah.
And largely because of these bad ideas.
Have you enjoyed this as a novice? You give when you go on a tour to visit our different places, kind of vocation story you're giving today, and you did 7 last words. You were one of the preachers. Have you enjoyed preaching?
Yes.
Have you? Okay. Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah. You have a very contemplative, but a thoughtful style about yourself, and I just wonder how the experience for you. I remember as a novice, as a novice, I was a hot mess and trying to give stories and things. For your experience, it's been a good experience to be able to preach in front of the brethren and for
it's real hard. That's never something I've been naturally drawn to, is standing up in front of a crowd and talking either about something or myself.
Sure.
But that's one of the, I'd say, coolest things about the novitiate year too.
Yeah.
Is that I've experienced some real, just put it simply, growth in that area.
Yeah.
Right. I have this. It's hard to express. I have this real desire when you're up there. It's really related to what we were just talking about with the truth. Get this message across. To get the gospel across.
Yeah.
And I'm a novice. I got many years, God willing, left before I can fully preach the gospel in a certain sense, which I'm very grateful for. Because it's hard.
And you'll be making vows soon.
Yes.
Yes. So what do you remember the date?
September 5th.
There you go, September 5th.
I do remember the date.
That is important today. But yeah,
preaching is just so, there's just such a desire, I gotta get this across, and then
desire's there.
You gotta work out all the details of how to, it's like a sport. You gotta practice.
Speaking of sports, any fun facts about you? Because I'd like to know fun facts or favorite foods or something. Fun. I'm going with fun fact here. But they kind of need a fun fact.
Yeah. So fun fact. Not that you were asking me about this earlier or anything. No. So I played soccer competitively growing up. So I played I played for the Olympic Development Program for the state of Florida when I was 13 at the time. So went to Starkville, Mississippi in July, which was really pleasant, and played Alabama and Georgia and the kids from those teams. So all for the birth year of 1993.
Okay.
Yeah, it was competitive. It's a really
what position did you play?
I was a goalkeeper.
You're the goalkeeper. Okay. Oh, very good. So did you make the team?
I did.
Did you?
I went to Mississippi.
Oh, you went. Okay. All right.
I made the team.
But did it tryouts, right? You had
the tryouts. They had two layers of tryouts.
Okay.
And then you have the trainings, and then you go there.
But then once you do that, what's the next step?
The next step would be you get selected for the regional team.
Okay.
At least at the time, I don't know how many there are now. There were 5 regions in Florida. I did not make.
Okay, you did make the regional team. Okay.
So there weren't tryouts. They basically just picked you
Gotcha.
from watching based on your performance. difference there.
Were you tall? Because obviously you naturally. How tall are you?
I am 6'3".
Yeah. So were you always
At
ahead
the
of the?
time, I believe I was about 5'4".
Okay. Okay.
And there were kids that were about 6'1".
Oh wow. Okay. So
So,
you weren't
yeah,
you weren't
was-
naturally the tallest person
Yeah.
in the goal. Okay.
No.
Very good. Did you think about doing well, you mentioned soccer, so did
Mm.
you think about doing it? Obviously, Thomas Aquinas is not where you go if you want to compete in terms of soccer.
Or anything.
Or
Other than
the great books and liberal arts. But
Yes.
did you give any thought to going to other universities that might have?
I did. So that was the goal for a time. I come from a Notre Dame legacy family, if you will. So
Oh.
both my parents.
The Fighting
they
Irish.
went there. The Fighting Irish.
There you go.
Yeah.
The thing about TSC and Notre Dame is because they're not like TSC can't rival the sports, and Notre Dame can't rival the academics.
I didn't want to say it.
So they got their own lanes.
Yeah, that's right. Anyway, no, so I did. That was my goal for a long time. I wanted to play Division I. I wanted to play at Notre Dame.
Yeah.
Be Rudy or
Yeah, the soccer equivalent of Rudy.
Yeah.
Rudy.
So maybe have a scholarship and not be a walk-on.
Okay.
But no.
Okay.
So that was the goal for a while, and then I distinctly remember one summer coming back. We have the summer workouts to lead into the season, right? And I was running. I think I was on the second or the third lap at 3:30 in the afternoon in July in Florida. So the heat index is 115.
Oh my goodness.
And I was like, no, you gotta push. You can. This is so you can play at Notre Dame. I think the next lap I was like, I don't know if this is worth it. It was that quick.
Okay.
And so
The desire came and went.
Yeah, so I think you gotta work really hard. I mean, at that point,
yeah.
play at that level. It's basically a job.
Yeah,
And,
Division I. You got to be all in to be
Yeah.
able to do it.
So there was
But
a time where I thought
those
playing-
teams were good though.
Yes. So I went to Thomas Aquinas College,
Yeah.
and while I was there, while I would have been at Notre Dame, had I stayed on that life path,
Yeah.
they won the national title in 2013.
Oh, you could have been part of the national champion team.
Well, who knows if they would have won? Maybe they got the right guy. Maybe they wouldn't have won.
They wouldn't have won.
Or maybe they would have won by more. It's hard to say.
Yes. Well, God had other plans.
God had other plans. Yes.
Very good. Well, it's been fantastic having you join us, Brother Kevin Peter. Certainly, we will keep you in prayers.
Please do.
And ask for your continued prayers as you go forth from here. This is that time of the novice year when your thoughts are having to make vows to join the student aid over at St. Albert's, and September 5th I'm sure we'll be live streaming that moment of vows. So for those who are on the YouTube channel, we're watching this now.
You don't want to miss it.
You don't want to miss it, exactly. You can be connected to that. And for all of our listeners through the podcast or watching through the video cast, we will continue our novice kind of interviews and sit downs with them, and may all that you do truly this week radiate the joy of the gospel here in the heart of the city. Amen.
Amen.